The girl in the shadows, the metal sky above the city was filled with smoke and soft wind as Lena sat still on the edge of her tall balcony, looking down at the movement below. Her eyes were quiet, but not lifeless. Her thin fingers gripped the arms of her wheelchair, her legs resting without purpose, covered with a faded blanket she had used for years below her Earth. Engineers moved through the wide paths of the alien city, wearing clean boots and light exosuits. They were fixing broken walls, scanning soil, setting up power lines, and children followed them laughing, not knowing what the humans really brought, hope or trouble. No one knew for sure. Lena had watched them every day for 3 years from this very spot, from sunrise to the last shadow. Their tools clicked, their machines hummed, their hands worked with calm focus, and none of them ever looked up, none, until today she saw him from the second level across the street. Not like the others, this human wore no helmet, just a simple tool belt and soft blue shirt. He was tall but not proud, just focused. His hands moved over a damaged panel, but then he stopped and turned slowly, his eyes rising to the balcony where Lena sat frozen. They locked eyes for a brief second, and Lena quickly turned away. She felt her chest tighten. No one had looked at her like that, not even her own people, not her nurse, not her brother. No one. Minutes later, a knock came at the door, not loud, not firm, just clear and present, the kind of knock that did not demand, it simply asked. Lena blinked and rolled her chair back from the balcony. With practiced effort, her wheels turned, and she moved through the hallway toward the door. She opened it halfway. Her caretaker was gone for the day. The building had no guards. No one expected trouble from a girl who could not stand there. He was the human standing outside the door, not smiling, just watching her with soft eyes. His face was not young but not old either. A few lines marked his cheeks, but his presence was quiet, like he had been through storms and carried no umbrella. "Hello," he said softly. Lena stared, but said nothing. "My name is Daniel. I'm a biomechanic from Earth. I've seen you watching from your balcony. I hope you don't mind." Lena raised an eyebrow. Her voice came out dry. "People stare at many things: broken machines, empty buildings, tired clouds. I guess I'm no different." Daniel did not flinch. He nodded once. "I don't think you're broken. I think you're strong." Lena almost laughed, a small sound in her throat. "Strong people don't sit for 10 years." Daniel's eyes lowered for a moment, then returned to hers with gentle force. "Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who have to wait the longest to move." She was silent again. The wind moved behind her through the hallway, carrying dust and the smell of metal from outside. "What do you want?" she finally asked. Daniel took a slow breath, reached into the pouch on his side, and pulled out a small device no bigger than her palm. It shimmered with blue lights, forming a faint outline of something mechanical. "I've been working on these," he said. "They are leg units designed for beings who have lost lower limb function. They read nerve signals through the spine and respond instantly, even if the muscles are weak." Lena stared at it, not moving, not blinking. "You're saying you can make me walk?" He nodded once. "Only if you want to." Her throat felt tight, her lips parted, but no words came for a moment. Then others said that before: doctors, soldiers, scientists, none of them returned him. "Not them," Daniel said quietly. Lena looked at the device, then back at him. "Why would a human help me?" Daniel's face shifted just slightly. Pain passed through his eyes quickly, then left. "Because someone once helped me when I couldn't walk either, and because you deserve better than that." Chair silence settled between them, but it was not empty. It was full of things neither could name. Finally, she said in a whisper, "Do you think I'll fall?" "Yes," Daniel replied simply. "Then I'll probably fall more than once," she said, almost like a thought. "Probably," he answered. Lena opened the door wider. Her chair rolled back slowly. "You better come inside then," she said. "If I'm going to fall, I might as well have someone nearby to catch me." Daniel stepped in quietly and closed the door behind him. For the first time in 10 years, Lena felt something she had forgotten. It wasn't hope, it was the space where hope could grow, and that was enough. The offer. The room was small, but filled with warmth. Cracked walls and dusty shelves held broken memories. An old music player sat silent near the window, and a faded cloth covered the only table. Daniel sat across from Lena, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes watching her. Without pressure, Lena stared at the glowing device in his palm. It looked fragile, but she could feel its strength. Like it carried something more than wires and metal, like it carried a question she had never been asked before. She leaned forward slowly, her hands moving with care. Her fingers brushed the edge of the device, and the surface shifted lights, forming the image of robotic legs. Slender, strong, and balanced. Is this real? She asked, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Yes, Daniel replied. It was designed for people who lost their ability to move, but their spirit stayed awake. It connects through neural signals, but passes damage and listens to intent, not muscle. Lena looked at him, doubt and curiosity mixing in her gaze. And you just walk around offering this to anyone who looks sad from a balcony? No, Daniel said, only the ones who deserve to stand. Lena almost smiled, but it vanished before it could grow. You don't know me. Maybe I don't want to walk. Maybe I've learned how to be still. Maybe this chair is safer than falling. Daniel nodded slowly, as if he had heard these words before in another voice from another room. That's your choice, he said. I'm not here to take anything away. I'm here to give something back only if you ask for it. The words sat in the air like a quiet bell ringing. Long after the sound had faded, she looked at her legs wrapped in cloth, motionless like forgotten stone. Do they hurt? She asked suddenly. Sometimes, Daniel said, when the body remembers what it lost, the memory itself aches. Lena touched her knees lightly, her fingertips trembling. My brother used to carry me on his back before he left. He promised to return with a new chair, the kind that floats. I told him I didn't need it. I told him I'd wait until I could walk to meet him. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. That was 7 years ago. Daniel said nothing. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small screen. It showed sketches, blueprints, moving parts. This is what we'll use to connect the units to your spine. It's safe, tested hundreds of times. I won't lie to you, it will hurt at first. Your muscles will scream, your nerves will feel like fire. But if you stay with it, your body will learn to trust your legs again. Lena stared at the screen, then at him. Why are you doing this for me? Daniel looked away for the first time since he entered her home. His voice dropped lower. Because once I built legs for my sister. She was a soldier. She lost everything in a raid. I worked day and night to help her walk again, and I did. She stood and laughed and danced for one day, just one. Then the war took her again. He looked back at Lena, eyes wet but not broken. I promised myself if I ever had another chance, I wouldn't waste it. Lena breathed in slowly, her heart thudding louder than before. The silence between them felt full, like it was waiting for something more. Outside, the wind carried voices, someone shouting from the market, footsteps running somewhere far and near. You know, the council won't like this, she said quietly. They fear Earth tech and native bodies. They say it changes who we are. Daniel nodded. I'm not here to change you. I'm here to help you be whole again. Lena leaned back, her fingers resting on her lap. She looked toward the window. The sky was turning red with sunset light, covering the city like fire and gold. If I say yes, what happens next? I take measurements. We map your nerve responses. I bring the full units and we install them. It will take days, maybe weeks, depending on your body's strength. And if I say nothing, I leave. Daniel said, no questions, no pressure, and you never have to see me again. Lena was quiet for a long time. Her fingers moved slightly, as if dancing with invisible air. She closed her eyes, saw herself standing, saw herself falling, saw herself rising again and again until falling stopped being the end. She opened her eyes and looked at him directly. Yes, she said, I want to walk. Daniel exhaled something deep, left his chest. Not relief, not victory, just the quiet peace of something beginning. Reached into his bag, pulled out a small scanner and a silver band. Let's start now, he said. If you're ready. Lena raised her sleeve. He placed the band around her wrist. The scanner hummed gently, mapping her nervous system. She watched the lights dance across her skin, like tiny stars moving with purpose. For the first time in years, something inside her felt alive, not imagined, not borrowed. Real. Daniel looked at the scanner numbers, rising, colors shifting. You're stronger than you think, he said. Your body remembers more than you know. She met his eyes, and this time the silence between them felt different. It felt like hope. The pain of standing the morning air was sharp and cold. Inside the small room, as Lena sat in silence, her eyes fixed on the wall in front of her, Daniel stood nearby holding the two robotic leg units wrapped in soft white foam. They looked like armor from another world, smooth, silver with blue veins pulsing. Faint light. "This is it," he said quietly. "Once we attach these, everything changes." Lena nodded slowly, her fingers clutching the edge of her chair. She had dreamed of this moment and feared it just the same. Her breath was tight, her body stiff, her mind. Louder than ever, Daniel kneeled down gently, his tools laid out beside him. Small lights scanned her legs, small arms adjusted positions with careful care. "You will feel a strong pull," he said, "then pressure, then heat. Do not fight it, just breathe through it." Lena closed her eyes and gave a single nod. She felt the cold touch of the first connector as it linked to her lower spine. Then a pulse of light spread through her nerves. Like water rushing through cracks in dry stone, she gasped, her back arched. Pain flared sharp and wild, like a knife made of fire. Her hands shook, but she gritted her teeth and stayed still. Second leg connected, and a wave of warmth flooded her limbs like they were waking from a long, heavy sleep. Her legs twitched, then kicked weakly. The blanket fell away. Felt that, she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Good. It means the signal is reaching the right points now." The hard part helped her shift forward and guided her new legs to the floor. Her feet touched the ground, robotic and smooth, but her own now. She stared at them, not believing they were real. "Ready?" he asked. She looked at him, her voice barely audible. "No, but do it anyway." Daniel activated the stabilization mode. The legs stiffened with support. She gripped the chair arms and pushed her weight forward. Her legs shook, her arms trembled, her body screamed, every inch crying to stop. She rose 1 inch, 2 inches, her knees buckled. She cried out and dropped back into the chair, breathing fast, eyes wide. "I can't," she said. "It hurts too much." "You can," Daniel said gently. "This is just the first try." He helped her again. Slower this time, less pressure, more balance. Her legs lifted once more. They fought her weight, but held steady. "One step," he said softly, "just one step forward." She moved her right leg. It jerked, then slid forward like a newborn animal, unsure of how to move. She leaned into the motion, her body swaying, but the leg held. Then she moved the left. Her body trembled, sweat rolled down her face, her arms outstretched for balance. "I'm doing it," she said, her voice shaking. "You are," Daniel replied, but just as quickly her knee gave out. She fell hard. Daniel caught her before she hit the floor, his arms around her back, steady and strong. She buried her face in his shoulder and let out a sound, not quite a sob, not quite a scream, just pain and release mixed into one. "I thought it would be easier," she said, her voice cracked. "I thought wanting it would be enough." He held her tighter. "Sometimes wanting is just the door, the walking is what comes after." He helped her back into the chair and handed her a cloth. She wiped her face and stared at her feet. "They feel like mine," she said, "like I can talk to them." "You can," Daniel said, "it just takes time. Your body needs to trust you." Again outside the window, the sun had risen high, casting light across the floor like golden lines. Lena looked at them, then back at him. "How long before I can walk on my own?" "Weeks, maybe," Daniel said. "Maybe less. You're stronger than most I've seen." The door burst open. Without warning, 2 local officers entered, sharp eyes and cold faces. They looked at Daniel, then at the gear, then at Lena. "You were warned," one said. "Earth tech on native body is forbidden by council order." Lena's eyes narrowed. She sat up straighter. "This is my body, my choice." One officer stepped forward and held up a scanner. "The signal confirms it. The tech is integrated. She must report for removal and inspection." Daniel stepped between them, his voice calm but firm. She agreed of her own will, and the integration is complete. Removing it now would risk permanent damage. "That is not our concern," the officer replied. "Orders are orders." Daniel turned to Lena. "I can stall them for a day, maybe 2. After that, they will force it." Lena's jaw clenched. She looked at the officers, then at Daniel. "Then we have 2 days to finish what we started that night." Daniel adjusted the calibration of the leg units while Lena practiced moving from sitting to standing again and again, each time her legs shaking, each time her balance growing stronger. Pain followed every motion, but so did something else, pride, fire, will. When She collapsed again on the floor. Daniel offered his hand. She took it, but this time pulled herself up before he could lift. "Hurry, want to walk tomorrow," she said, her voice steady. "You will," Daniel replied, "if you keep standing today." Kept working under the soft light of the room, the only sounds the hum of machines, the steady breath of effort, and the quiet rhythm of hope. Being built one painful step at a time. The threat Lena stood in the center of the clinic floor, her legs stiff but holding her weight, her arms stretched out for balance. Daniel watched from the corner of the room, his hands ready but not moving. He had learned not to catch her unless she asked. Outside the building, a growing crowd gathered. Some came to watch, some came to protest. A few held signs, written in bold letters, some in support, some filled with fear and anger. "She is walking," Daniel said quietly. "After all these years, she is walking." Lena took another step, her foot sliding forward, her balance shifting, her knees bending. The robotic legs responded smoothly, reading her thoughts before her muscles could react. She turned slowly toward him, sweat shining on her forehead. "I made it across the room." "You did," Daniel said, his voice soft, full of quiet pride. Their moment was cut short by the sudden noise of boots on tile. The door swung open. 2 senior council guards stepped inside. Behind them walked a figure Lena had not seen in years, her brother Rian. He wore a faded soldier's coat, his eyes hard and sharp. But when they met hers, something inside them broke. "You really did it," he said, not as a question but a truth. Lena's lips trembled. She wanted to run to him, but her steps were still slow. Her heart beat faster than her feet could move. Rian stepped forward, but the guards held out a hand. "Council has made its decision. The integration of human technology without approval is a violation. The subject must report for immediate removal and review." Daniel moved beside Lena, his voice calm but firm. "If you remove the tech now, it will cripple her again. Maybe worse, her body is still adapting. She needs more time." The guard ignored him and turned to Rian. "You are her family. Speak sense to her. She is risking exile." Rian looked at Lena, then at her legs, then at Daniel. "How long until she can walk freely?" Daniel answered, 1 week, maybe less, with daily training and no interference. Rian nodded once, then turned to the guards. "You will give her 7 days or you will have to carry me out too." The guards hesitated, then stepped back without another word. They left, but the tension in the room stayed thick and cold. Lena sat down slowly, her legs trembling. "I never thought I'd see you again," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I came back as soon as I heard." Rian said, "I saw a video of you standing. It reached our outpost. Everyone was talking about the girl who stood again." Lena looked at him, her eyes wet. "They still want to take the legs. They fear what you represent," he said softly. "They fear change and they fear hope later." That night, Lena stood in front of a mirror, her hands resting on the wall, her legs steady under her. She could see her reflection, strong and tall, for the first time in her memory. "Tomorrow is the speech," Daniel said from behind her. "What if I fall?" Lena asked. "Then you fall," he replied, "and then you stand again." The next day, the central plaza filled with people. The crowd spread far and wide across the square. News drones hovered in the air, broadcasting to every corner of the city. Even the outer worlds watched as Lena was helped onto the stage. Wore a simple dress, her robotic legs polished and silent, her face calm, though her heart thundered in her chest. Daniel stood behind the curtain, watching silently, Rian by his side. A voice echoed from the platform. "Today we hear from Lena, once bound by silence and stone, now choosing to speak for herself." Lena stepped forward, her legs moved smoothly, each step firm, her breath caught in her throat, but she kept going. When she reached the center, she paused. The crowd waited. The wind passed over the plaza like a slow wave. She looked out at them, at the faces filled with doubt, fear, hope, curiosity. Then she spoke. 10 years ago, I lost the use of my legs. I was told I would never walk again. I was told my life would be still and small." Her voice grew stronger. "But then someone came, not from this world, but from Earth, and he did not see me as broken. He saw me as waiting." She raised her head higher. "I did not betray my people. I became one of them again. I did not lose myself. I found something I had forgotten." She took 1 step forward. The cameras followed. "I walk Today, not because of metal, not because of science I walk, because someone believed I could. She turned slightly, her voice soft. Now you fear what you do not understand, but I stand here not as a machine, not as a symbol. I stand here as Lena, and these are my legs, and this is my choice. The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then slowly a sound rose from the center, a single hand clapping, then another and another, until the plaza echoed with applause. Not all, but many enough to shake the air. Daniel stepped onto the stage and stood beside her, not speaking, just standing with Heron. That moment Lena did not feel like a patient or a subject or a risk. She felt like a person who had taken her first real step into the world, and the world had taken a step toward her too. The walk forward. The sky was calm over the city as morning light stretched across the streets, golden and quiet. Lena stood by the window of her room, her eyes resting on the hills beyond the buildings, her robotic legs steady beneath her. Each step she had taken now echoed in the hearts of many across the planet. Daniel entered the room with a soft knock. In his hand he held a small bag. Inside were adjustment tools and a folded cloth for cleaning the leg units. He placed it on the table and smiled. "You have visitors today," he said. "The council has sent someone." Lena turned slowly, her posture straight, her breath steady. "Are they here to take back what I built?" Daniel shook his head. "I think they are here to ask how you built." A soft knock came at the door. A young official stepped inside, her hands empty, her face calm. Behind her stood two elder members of the council, their robes marked with symbols of law and history. "We have come to speak, not to demand," the young official said. "Then speak," Lena replied without fear. "You walked before the world and did not fall," one elder said. "You stood not just on mechanical limbs, but on belief and courage, and we have seen the people respond. There is a shift, Lena, we cannot ignore it." The other added, "They see you not as changed, but as stronger. They see themselves in youth." Young one stepped forward. "We would like to ask you to lead the first program between Earth and our people. A center where others like you can receive help and training and choice." Lena was quiet for a moment. Her fingers touched the side of her leg where the metal met skin. She looked at Daniel, then back at the council. "I accept, but on one condition. Choice must always remain with the person. No one must be forced to walk if they are not ready." The council members nodded, then turned and left with quiet steps. Later that afternoon, Lena walked beside Daniel through the busy streets. People stopped and waved. Some bowed, others reached out to touch her hand. Children ran beside her laughing. She smiled at each one, not as a hero, but as someone who had once been forgotten and now remembered how to feel seen. They reached a small field just beyond the city. The grass bent under soft wind, and the sun cast long shadows across the ground. Rian waited there with others, helping build the first walls of the new center. Wood and metal rising together like a promise. "You made them believe again," said as she approached, "not just in tech, not just in healing, but in becoming whole." Lena looked at the building in progress, her heart full of something deep and warm. "No, I just reminded them that standing is not only done with legs." Next few weeks passed in motion. Lena trained new volunteers, helped test newer versions of the limb units, sat with those too afraid to try, and listened without pushing. She knew the fear, knew the silence that wrapped around the soul when the body stopped moving. One evening as the sun began to set, Daniel found her sitting alone near the old market. The wind played with her hair. The sky above was painted with soft red. "You never told me what it really felt like," he said, sitting beside her. "Not the walking, but the first time you stood." She was quiet. Then she turned her head and looked at him. "It felt like my heart stood first, then my body followed." Daniel smiled and nodded. "You were always meant to rise." Lena looked forward, her eyes resting on the distant hills. "The center opens officially. Children, families, even elders will come, some to watch, some to try, some to just sit like I did and wonder if standing is still possible." Daniel reached into his pocket and handed her a small silver pin shaped like a leg. "With wings for you," he said, "for what you gave back to the world." Lena took it gently, pinned it to her chest, then stood slowly with her hands in her pockets, her feet solid beneath her. As the stars began to appear one by one above them, she whispered something soft. "For 10 years I was still. I waited, I hoped, I forgot, I remembered. And now I walk not just for myself, but for everyone who thinks standing is only for the strong. Daniel stood beside her, neither speaking for a long time, just breathing. In the quiet of a world slowly healing, and then together, without rush, without fear, they walked forward into the coming night, not away from the past, but towards something bright and waiting. The end.